to make you laugh. I would be the fool for you. Although the people turn and stare, I really don't care. I would give my everything to keep you, boy. It breaks my heart when you're not there. I'll stage a ballet on a tabletop. Command performance, fingers slide, yeah, yeah. And although I ain't got no tune, my show ain't gonna fly. I'll find the music there in your eyes. Oh, me, oh, my. I'm a fool for you, baby. Oh, me, oh, my. I'm crazy, baby. Oh, me, oh, my. Yeah, I'm a fool for you, baby. Come on, let your love light shine on me.
I haven't done one of these in a while, and I didn't feel like there was really much need to, because I think that I think the only people that really need to know what to do next are his attorneys at this point. But I am back to say, as you can read the title, says, why is it important to get King's story right? It's important for a number of reasons. First of all, let's start from the beginning. From the beginning of this, let's go back to 1994, which was a really important year. And you all know, if you know King's story, you know what that year symbolizes, 1994 and 1995. There was something that happened. There was a string of events that happened around King. And I promised myself I wasn't going to talk about it because I feel like it's not my place to speak about this. I think it's something that King needs to talk to the public about, because it's a conversation that I think never happened in 1994, 1995, and 1996. And it has really destroyed him over time, slowly. It's destroyed his reputation. And it's to do with Aaliyah, you know, you all know her name, of course, and that marriage. All I'm going to say about that is this. What people don't understand about King is this. Because they don't understand his character, they assume a lot of things and fill in a lot of gaps. And this goes for everybody. I hear everybody who talks about him having the same kind of conversation without him. You know, it's kind of that conversation where you walk into a room and your relatives are talking about you and you're not there, and then they're getting all the facts wrong and you get really irritated. But there's just this energy of like, you know, it's out of control. They're all in this kind of little buzz of, you know, exchanging information about what they know. And that's what it feels like with King. I think there's a lot of people talking about him without him involved in the conversation. And I guess my presence on here, I've hoped to change that. I've hoped to make a difference to that and stop that. I'm not him, but I am the closest person to him, the closest person who has his story right. You know, of course, the only person who can have it right 100% is him. And that's why I keep saying to you, wait until our interview together, when we do sit down and have that couch relaxed conversation that we've been wanting to have, and where you get to hear from him what happened. But when it comes to 1994 and that story with Aaliyah, you know, people don't understand that around the circumstances around that situation. There were whispers of it, you know, in 1994. That, you know, there was They were using him for publicity. They were using him with her for publicity, for good publicity for her. And that's as much as I'm going to get into it. And if you can just use your minds a little bit and understand that that is the basis for all of that, is this whole connection with her and him started and continued on because her managers, her management and his management were the same people. And they saw an opportunity in King. They saw him as somebody who could take her career forward. They didn't care about him. They didn't care about his reputation. They didn't care about how people were going to look at him. What they cared about was her, and they cared about making her look great to the people. And in that, and making her look authentic and believable when she sang her music. And in order to do that, they had to do a lot of marketing. And with marketing, marketing is a psychology. It's meant to trick your mind into believing something that's not real, and that's what they basically did, is tricked your minds into believing a storyline that she was a much more mature woman, and they used King to do that, and none of it was real, and none of it considered him. He was exploited in order to sell records for her. And he's going to be able to tell that a lot more in detail for you from an emotional perspective one day soon. He never had that conversation with the world because he's such a man of honor that people don't understand this about him. He would never talk about anyone badly, let alone a woman. And this is the problem, that people, scammers and opportunists have taken advantage of that. And instead of seeing the honor in him, they've abused that because of their own personal spite and bitterness. They've used it as an opportunity to slander him, knowing that he's not going to pay them back. He's not going to seek revenge. He's not going to, go to the media and say that's not true. But he should have, and somebody should have told him that. Somebody should have said, protect yourself and tell your story, tell your truth. Back in 1995, somebody should have told him that. But instead, he was told by his lawyers, his attorneys, who were all, in my view, at that point, everybody had their hands in his pockets. But he was told to stay silent. He's been told to stay silent on a lot of things that have hurt him. And I guess that's why, I think my place in his life is going to be really important, because I want to change that. I've never believed in staying silent about, things that really matter, because what happens is it does grow out of control to the point where we are here. And the only way that they were able to, use a doctored tape, of a woman and a man with actors and say it was him and a child was because of that story in 1994 with Aaliyah. That wasn't true, and they've been going on back to back with these stories that weren't true. And then because he didn't discuss the tapes and he was told by his attorneys, again, don't talk about that situation, don't talk about the trial. In his mind, he felt he didn't need to say, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. He felt that the trial was enough to say that. But clearly it wasn't. It wasn't enough to say that wasn't me. They were actors. I have no idea who these people were. They were trying to extort me. And no one told him to do this because everybody had their hands in his pockets. And it benefited all of these people for King to stay silent. And it didn't benefit him. It didn't protect him. It benefited their pockets. And, fast forward to 2019, and we have surviving Rkelly, and he chooses a legal team to deal with that situation. And once again, everybody sees King immediately as an opportunity. A lot of people, I would say 99.9% of people see him as an opportunity and don't see him as the man he is. And so you have a legal team that he's taken on board, and instead of seeing him as a man who needed to tell his story and to tell his truth, and had all of these sequence of events that happened because he didn't tell his story, instead of seeing that and getting to know him, what they did was jump right in and say, right, this is the story, and we're going to say that you are in this relationship with Azriel Clary and Joycelyn Savage. And that just wasn't the fact, it just wasn't the fact. That wasn't the situation. They never checked the facts. They never sat down with him and said, what is your story? Let's go back to the beginning. Let's find out from the beginning what happened with you from 1994 that brought you up to here, because we need to correct this so this doesn't happen again. They were looking at the short term, which is just winning the case and coming up with a defense for him. They weren't looking at his reputation, how that was going to tarnish his reputation, how that was going to make him look guilty of what he's being accused of socially, which is exploiting younger women. And they weren't thinking of how it was going to affect his mental and emotional well-being in having to put up these appearances. And again, being part of another, fake story, fake relationship. So you have a fake relationship with Aaliyah that started in 94, and it died because he hasn't been able to tell that truth. And then again, we're back here again. And this is why I've been saying to people and shouting and getting very angry with people and supporters who say this story and over again, repeat it. Him like they're doing something good for him when they say, oh, Azriel was in a relationship. No, she wasn't in a relationship with him. And if it was a relationship, it was a platonic family type situation. When I say relationship, I'm talking about romantic and sexual adult relationship. This never happened with Azriel and Joycelyn Savage, and I'm not talking about him taking them out shopping and having a snap with Joycelyn out shopping. That's not a relationship. He took everybody out shopping. The fact that she chose to hold his hand was the fact that she had an infatuation with him. They all do. They all have their own issues, and they all were exploiting him in a way that he wasn't even aware of, because in his mind he was taking care of everybody. He was, he provided them with what they never had in their lives. They came to him for mentorship, musical mentorship, and they chose instead to live a life of doing nothing and sitting on their bums and just taking his money and the gifts and everything else and the lavish lifestyle and not pursuing their music. But also they didn't have the talent for that. And instead of finding out what they had talent for, they decided just to sit on their bottoms and keep taking from him, and then allowing this media performance to take place with their parents. And any person with a sound mind and a clear heart and who cares about a person would at that point say, something needs to change here. We're kind of putting him in a horrible situation for no reason. We need to leave here and need to get out of here. We need to leave him alone. But that's not what they did. They maneuvered into his heart even further by saying, well, we don't want to go back to our families. Look at them. They're abusive, they're messy, they're embarrassing. We don't want to go back to being poor. We don't want to go back to that lifestyle where we have to work like regular people. We don't want that. We want you to take care of us. And so we don't care that your reputation's going to be soiled. You might get into legal trouble. We don't care that our parents are extorting you. This is the perspective of Azriel and Joycelyn. I'm trying to get into your heads. So don't, when people start to say, oh, they cared about him at some point. They didn't. You don't care about somebody and put them in that kind of position. You don't ever do that to somebody who's innocent and you know in your heart that he's not touched you, he's not ever been near you. You let people believe that, though. You allow the media, you allow the public to believe that because it benefits you. It benefits you for people to believe that he's in a relationship with you because you have an infatuation with the man that he doesn't have for you. But it benefits you because that's what you want. You know, anyone that's ever been in love, you know, you understand that concept that, of course, it's the best thing in the world when, you know, people believe that you're in a relationship with somebody that you're in love with. But if it's not real, then it's not real. But they didn't care about that. They just cared that it was, you know, real to the public, because really that's what it was all about for them, the fame and the attention. They wanted to be public figures and they wanted to be famous and they wanted to make fame off of his name in any way they could. You know, and I'm putting it very plainly because this is how it was. When I hear people tell this story and they get it wrong, and supporters get it wrong, and they continue to get it wrong and ignore me when I say, get his story right. Listen to what I've been saying for the last 2 years and get his story right. And if you can't get his story right, be quiet, for goodness sakes, because you don't help him. What you do is you actually put out more false information out into the public. And people don't listen because they have such a need to help. You know, there's a psychology in that, actually, where sometimes people help for the wrong reasons, you know, and it may seem like they're doing it for somebody else, but actually they're getting a lot for themselves in helping. So sometimes when you see people doing charity work or charity, don't always assume that that person is a good person, you know, just because they're doing charity or they're campaigning or advocating, you know, because people get different things from different situations. Sometimes people want other people to think that they're good people, and in that there is a reward for them as well, because for you to think, you know, here I am, I'm standing up for you know, justice and all of that. I'm a good person. It kind of makes a lot of people feel good, and there's nothing wrong with that per se. But as long as people acknowledge that, just happening to be part of his support network of, you know, bloggers or whatever, extended people, parties, does not necessarily mean that that person is here because they want to purely and intentionally just be there for him and just support him with a pure intention. And I've come across this because I think, why don't people listen to me? Why is it that some supporters, most of the supporters, put their back up when I talk to them and when I address it directly with them to stop putting out this fake story of a relationship that never happened? Even when the transcripts came out from the court, and I've already put that up there, you know, where Azriel says very plainly to her brother in letters during happier times that King was never interested in her, no matter what she did. And she wrote letters to him in prison saying, you know, if you don't give me what I want, just like begging him and, you know, just drowning him in demands for a sexual and romantic relationship that he didn't want. You know, and of course, and you've got to see the timeline. If she's writing to him in jail, it never happened. So people calling him her boyfriend, it's incorrect. It's just incorrect information. Azriel Clary was never in a romantic sexual relationship with King Rkelly, my Rkelly. Never, ever. And Joycelyn Savage the same. Never, okay? You want to call a relationship where you hang out and you go shopping and you watch movies with a bunch of people, a relationship, then call it that. But it's not a romantic or sexual relationship. It's not what he's being accused of, which is sex trafficking. And this is why it's important to get his story right. If you're a supporter listening to this, it's really important that you get his story right, because he's up against, the charges he was up against was sex trafficking, Azriel Clary. So when you keep saying, oh yeah, that was her boyfriend, you know, you're actually giving support to a lie, and you're giving support to some fake charges that the government came up with, and a fake Rico story that they came up with. And I know some are doing this innocently because they don't have all the information, and some people don't even know I exist. I've had people that come into my comments and say, where have you been? Where have you been? And I've been here for 2 years, and all the main bloggers, I promise you, all the bloggers that you listen to, that you talk about Rkelly, know about me, but they just don't talk about me as who I am. What they do is they put out that I'm some crazy, or they don't know what my story is, or here comes another one wanting attention. They don't even bother actually to find out, and they've never, and the people that I have actually tried to work with on behalf of King actually failed him miserably. In my community board, I put a post about that I did make an attempt to actually collaborate with a blogger, because I thought it would benefit King to have me work with somebody who could use her platform and put out the right information for him and put out the correct information. But instead, I came across somebody who was wanting attention for herself and was blinded by that, kind of that. And it is a drug with people. Let me just say this. Once people kind of taste that attention that comes from his name, it becomes like a drug for a lot of people, that they have to get more of it, and that's what I experienced with this blogger. Is she was so blinded by her need for that attention, that excitement of, what people are going to think when they know that Rkelly communicated with me. I know the psychology of it because I've seen it happen time and time again with him, and it happens with everybody. And I've seen it happen with his attorney recently, Attorney Greenbourg, and how that insanity plays a role in their lives. It overtakes their mental stability for some people, that they can't actually be professional and they can't separate their feelings anymore. They're just completely addicted to this need to be a part of his story, a need to be close to him, a need to have that validation of being somebody that he has on his team. So anyway, I just really wanted to come online to make that point. Why is it important to get King's story right? It's important because his charges are very specific for things to do with a sexual relationship. And when you understand that he never had a sexual relationship with Johanna Pace, or any kind of relationship at all, that she was completely a stalker and that is all she ever was, and how the government were able to believe this concocted, fabricated relationship story of a fake boyfriend that never existed because she's mentally unwell. And her sisters have all said the same, that she's unwell, is a compulsive liar, and a stalker of him of many, many years. Yet she's been able to go on a TV show and convince the US government that she is a victim of him, not the other way around, that he's been a victim of her for over 10 years, this stalker. And imagine yourself in his shoes, that you've got a stalker who people have twisted around to being your victim, and every one of these women that are in his cases, actually he's a victim of them, because they've put out these fake stories to try and destroy him, because they didn't get what they wanted from him, which is a relationship. When you understand that Azriel never got the relationship she wanted, but some of you are saying out there that she was his boyfriend, she never had that. This is why we're here. This is why we're here, is because she wanted to be his girlfriend and it never happened. You understand this? That I was there, and I was the girlfriend, I was his partner, and she hated that. And she knows about me, but you all don't know about me. And that's the problem, is because you don't listen. You don't listen, some of you. And it's to your detriment that you don't listen, because you'll find out when it's too late and you've put out all this false information, and you'll look back and go, well, we wasted all that time when we could have been listening to her and getting the facts, getting his story, putting that story out, helping clear him of the charges, which was sex trafficking her, because you cannot have a charge for sex trafficking of somebody you were never in a relationship with, who you never had a sexual or intimate relationship with, who is completely obsessed with you. That's what we're talking about with Johanna Pace, Azriel Clary, and Aaliyah. So there are 3 women, that he never had any kind of relationship with. But because of the fake stories that other people have encouraged him to stay silent about, we're here. And I know that, I think some of you know that from my previous video, that I am taking charge of his PR for this reason, because I've seen how people have taken advantage of him. I saw how his attorneys were just rushing to win this case and didn't care about a story, didn't care about his life, didn't care about what was going on for him. And by the time they found out about me, they didn't want to hear it. They had psychological blocks because they'd already concocted whatever they wanted as his defense. They'd made huge problems for him from this story that they ran with. So it didn't benefit them to believe me. The only one that I have any respect for and contact with and a real kind of appreciation for is Mr. Canick, who has been honest with this and has really listened to me and King. And that's the thing. And no matter what other people think of him, I think of him so highly for just that one thing. Because if you don't listen to your own client, then what is the point of what you're doing? Are you doing it for him, or are you doing it for yourself? Anyway, I just want to put that out there. And it's been a while since I made something like this. I want to acknowledge all the people that support me and listen here, and really listen with open hearts and open ears, and with a really pure intention, because just your energy alone reminds me that there are people that still care about the truth, that still care about him from a pure place, and that care about me even. It's surprising for me. Look, I never expected that, from complete strangers. And I honor you for that, because I think that I would be the same as you are if I was in your place and I was listening to me or somebody else going through this and trying to put across the truth. I would be on your side. I would be just doing what you're doing and giving words of encouragement and support and just positive energy. I know I read all your comments. I try to get through to your comments. I do have my comments switched off, so if you don't see comments underneath a video, that's why. Because I do filter my comments, because I'm in a place where right now I don't want to have any negativity around me. I've got to focus, and I've got limited energy for all of that. There's enough negativity to deal with. So, but I do get through to them, and as you know, I do respond. Anyway, I really hope that you're all having a beautiful day, morning, as you wake up and you begin your day in a beautiful way. And I really hope that your day becomes blessed, and that these words, I think, reach you in a way that kind of just gives you some clarity, because that's all I want to do, is give people clarity. Because I promise you that my king is coming home, and he's coming home for good. And nothing, any enemy or amount of enemies or power of enemies can come between him and God and the universe that is on his side. Our team is much bigger than their team. Thank you all for listening.